If you set up your business to sell, at a minimum, you should plan 2 to 3 years ahead of your sale, not only for succession planning, but there's so many aspects of getting your business ready for sale.
Welcome to the Path to Owning It podcast by Provide, hosted by me, Corey Brown, a marketing leader at Provide with over a decade in supporting small businesses. Whether you're an aspiring or established founder, here you'll find tools and advice to start building your legacy and take your business to new heights. To help you achieve your entrepreneurial ambitions, each month we'll tap into our unparalleled network of industry experts who will join us on our quest to provide the answers to your most pressing questions. Like what you hear? Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen. Today, I'm talking with Alex Vantarakis, founder of the Vant Group, a leading mergers and acquisitions firm. Alex has spent over 25 years helping business owners buy and sell, and he's seen it all. Under his leadership, the Vant Group has a 90% success rate, with listings selling at 97% of the list price. He's also co-author of Exit, a business owner's guide to selling a company, and Entrance, a business owner's guide to buying a company. If you're thinking about your exit strategy, this conversation is for you. Alex, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you on today.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited as well.
Yeah, today we're talking mostly about exit planning and specifically when there's no known successor. So I'm curious, is it more common that small business owners have someone in the family ready to take over or less common these days?
That's a great question. Definitely less often, not only not having a succession within the family, but even business owners that don't have any family members, they don't have any succession within their own management team at times. And it really depends on the deal size. The smaller the company, the less there is planning around transition, and the larger the company, I think they do a better job. And to clarify larger and smaller for this call, smaller is under 20 million in revenue, and larger is over that.
Yeah. Why do you think it's less common these days, especially for smaller companies, to not have a family member ready to take over?
For the same reason that I used to tell people that I'm going to die at my desk. Business owners just don't think there's ever going to come a day when they're going to retire. And then by the time they realize they want to retire, most of them haven't done the planning that's needed for it.
Yeah.
Running a small business is awesome and amazing, but also scary and uncharted territories. And you're just worried about paying your bills and bringing in revenue. The idea of being able to transfer the business to a successor seems like more of a pipe dream for a lot of these people.
Yeah. And to that note, when is it ideal that a business owner should really start planning their exit, especially if they know that their kids or family aren't interested or available to take over?
That's a great question with a very easy answer. It's the same answer for everybody. The day they start the business.
Yeah.
And I'm being facetious, but not really. If you set up your business to sell at the beginning, you'd be amazed the return that you can get. But let's say that you're not able to do that. At a minimum, you should plan 2 to 3 years ahead of your sale to sell, not only for succession planning, but there's so many aspects of getting your business ready for sale. It's kind of like a house. I hate to simplify it to a house, but if you're going to sell your house, you're going to make sure the foundation is checked, the plumbing works, everything's painted, it looks nice, etc. And in a house, you could do that in a few weeks. But unfortunately, with a business, to make real changes, you need a year or 2 or 3 to do so.
Yeah, we're going to get a little bit more into that in the second half of this conversation. But I'm also curious, what options do owners have if they want to transition out, but keep their mission alive, right? That they've worked so hard to establish over likely decades of owning a business. Are there creative transition options like selling to employees, maybe like community ownership models? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. It really determines what is the purpose for selling. If your purpose is to get the highest justifiable price on the market, then really an internal or an external sale will probably be about the same. If you have a true desire to continue legacy you have to determine, is that legacy in the people or is it in the business before you just start transferring that business to your employees. Like anything in life, you have captains and you have players. And if you don't have captains on the team that you're going to transfer your business to, as much as your heart is in the right place,
Yeah.
and you transfer it to a bunch of players, you can forget about the legacy of your business because it'll be gone. But what are some creative ways that people can use to transfer the business to their employees or family members? Man, there's a ton. The first thing you've got to do is determine what is the value of this asset that we're going to transfer. And depending on the deal size, if it's under $5 million in deal size, that's a very easy transaction to implement. We can get into that. If it's over $5 million, that's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Gotcha. Have you seen success in avenues of selling to employees or, like we were saying, community ownership models in the past?
Absolutely. The trick with selling to employees is telling them that the business is for sale.
Yeah, right.
When it works, you normally have employees that are more like family members that you can confide in, and that if you tell them you have the opportunity to buy the business, and if they say, I can't buy it, they're not walking out the door the next day. So let's assume that you have a good set of employees or partners to be able to start planning to do that. Once evaluation is determined, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting the funds into the seller's pockets. Okay. So all of the avenues for transitioning a business to employees or partners, frankly, are all tied around financing, right?
Right.
You could sell any business tomorrow to your employee under the following metrics, and it would take you one day to do. You provide 100% owner financing. If you want to sell your business to your employees and you want to help them and you feel confident about the business and you don't need any money for retirement and you're okay taking the risk, are you noticing all these disclaimers?
Right, exactly.
There's a lot of disclaimers that come to that. But
it's not really the payday that they probably expected when they sell their business.
It is not the payday. But, then again, you have multiple type of owners. You have the majority of owners that the business is a nest egg and they need all the funds. And what I just mentioned will not work. And you also have, luckily, those that have already made their millions and truly love their employees. And I say truly love because this owner financing, you would have to either be crazy or in love with your employees to do it. But like I said, that transaction is a no-brainer. You can do that all day long.
Yeah.
Where it gets more difficult is to start bringing in banks or additional capital or private funding or asset-based lending. That's where it gets a little tricky. But luckily, the SBA, which is the Small Business Administration, has a program where they guarantee non-asset-based loans under $5 million. And that is essentially what is used for probably 90+% of employee, partner, or family buyouts.
Let's talk a little bit about selling through a broker versus passing this business down to family. Can you talk about the differences there and what someone should expect, either emotionally and financially?
Absolutely. So we're very fortunate here. We do a lot of what's called facilitation work, which is what you're mentioning, where a seller already has a group in mind that they want to sell to, whether it's employees, partners, or family members. And those transactions, frankly, at times can be the easiest and smoothest transactions possible, depending on the quality of the buyer and the seller. In order to sell to an employee, a family, or a partner, like I said, there has to be one captain that's on that team.
Yeah.
I have seen extremely successful employee buyouts, extremely successful. I have also seen cases, and I won't mention the name, but this gentleman loved his employees. I think 2 of them were family members, and the other 3 had been there forever. And we had come up with a value for the business, and it was $7 million. And we went to market, and we got a whole bunch of offers between $6.5 and $7 million, but the owner just didn't feel right about selling it. So he told me, work it out where I can sell it to my employees. And I said, well, how much do you love your employees? A lot. I said, okay. And then I repeated the 100% owner financing.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that owner financing does, it gives them a buffer to kind of learn how to run the business. And should they come into some months that are a little more difficult, hopefully, since you have a good relationship, there's a little more leeway. But he sold the business to these people. There was 5 of them. He got 5 payments. And at the end of the 6th month, we realized there was no captain. We had all players and nobody wanted it. And they frankly gave the business back to him.
Wow.
Fortunately, next week on Monday, I'm meeting with a buyer that's going to pay him $7 million for his business. So it all kind of worked out in the long run. But that's a case where it didn't work out before it even had a chance to succeed or fail. So that's one scenario. There are other scenarios, unfortunately, where I've seen where the employees have bought it and they've gotten SBA financing or some financing where you can't just hand the keys back. And unfortunately, those stories didn't turn out well. Probably one of the questions is, well, what's the common denominator? Like, how do you make it so that they don't fail? You have to be very real as a seller with yourself when you're looking at the people across the table and forget that they've worked with you forever or their family and really analyze, can they really run the business?
That's a great point, Alex. Is there a way for someone to know definitively if they have what you're calling a captain and not just a player? How do you vet your employees, especially when you've worked with them probably for a while now and you kind of want to help them out or do what you think is the right thing? How do you know if they're the right person?
That's a phenomenal question. You will be able to identify them with different qualities in their job. Are they the leader? Are they coming up with ideas? Do they come to you with issues before you bring it to them? Are they ever interested in how the financials of the business work? Are they always giving you ideas on how to increase revenue? Are they coming up with ideas on how they can have better cost of labor? It is somebody that has some sort of proactive mind. A lot of people think, oh, you got to go to school and get a degree and get an MBA and do all these things. And don't get me wrong, I think education is great. But you got to have a common sense nature about you. The best skill that you could have in owning a business is to be a jack of all trades. That's the best skill that you can have. And if somebody has that skill and that ability, they're usually going to rise to the top and you're usually going to be able to see it in them. It's kind of like courting and dating, right?
Yeah.
The longer these employees have been there, the longer the owner has really been able to see what do they truly like. And then over time, you'd be able to figure it out. And in my last deal, the one that I told you that didn't fall apart, I didn't want to say anything, but I knew none of these 5 people were going to be. I think I might have dropped a subtle hint to them, but when 2 of them are your son and your son-in-law, you want to be a little more subtle than you want to be direct.
Absolutely. Yeah. What is it that owners can do now to make their businesses more attractive to buyers, even if, like you said, a sale is hopefully 2 to 3 years away? What are some of those things?
That's probably the most important question that people should really listen to on this call if they want to sell at some point. The easy answer, I could answer in one statement. I'll say more, but there's one thing I could say, and that is increase your EBITDA.
Yeah.
For those of you on the call that don't know what EBITDA is, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, net cash flow, discretionary earnings, profit, all of these terms essentially are, if I'm a buyer and I buy your business, how much cash flow can I expect from this business so that I can justify the sale price and go get bank financing? The more EBITDA you have, the more sale price you will have. But also within EBITDA ranges, the more EBITDA dollar amount you have, the higher the multiple. The multiple is a multiplication of the EBITDA. So let's say you have $1 million in EBITDA, you'll probably get somewhere between a 5 and 8 times multiple, which means it's worth $5 to $8 million.
Yeah.
If you have a $100,000 EBITDA, you're probably going to get a multiple of 1 or 1.5. The larger the EBITDA, the larger the multiple. So the primary thing you can do is increase EBITDA. Now, all of the other things that I'm going to mention, frankly, just affect your ability to have higher EBITDA. So things that if I was to design the perfect business, increasing sales, no customer over 5%, employees that have longevity, policies and procedures, less than 60-day accounts receivable policy, a lead generation or sales and marketing program in place, and great reviews and background information. Those are probably the top 7 things that you can do to guarantee yourself the highest justifiable sale price.
Yeah. And if an owner, let's say, has just been kind of running on autopilot for the last several years, right? Because it's just the way they've always done business and hasn't focused on any of these things, what would be the lever they should pull first?
Increase revenue and cut costs.
Yeah.
And I know that's what every business.
You make it sound so easy. Yeah.
It's so easy. Just go out and increase your revenue and just cut costs and you'll make more money and then you won't want to sell.
Yeah.
You know what the number one reason is that people sell? They never say it, but do you know what the number one reason is?
What's that?
The amount of time, effort, risk, and reward is not worth the financial benefit that they're currently receiving.
Interesting.
Right? If you love what you're doing and you make $1 million a year, would you sell? No. But if you're grinding and you haven't taken a vacation and you think I could be making more at, Chick-fil-A, which sometimes that's how it works out for business owners. That is primary the number one reason. Now, if you would ask me officially, I'd say it's retirement, but I see a lot of people retire early because the business just isn't accumulating the type of wealth that they need.
Yeah. Well, these are great insights on prepping a business for sale, but for many owners, it's not, like you said, just about the numbers. It's about what happens to everything that they built, right? So making a business attractive to buyers is maybe one thing, but making peace with letting it go, I think that's another. How can owners honor their legacy and make smart financial moves at the same time? That's what we're going to get into right after this. Are you fresh out of school with big dreams and ambition to achieve them? Or is your current business bursting at the seams and it's time to expand your legacy? If you tend to challenge the status quo and shoot for the moon, Provide's SBA loan may be for you. Our dedicated team of small business experts will work with you to make your ownership dreams, no matter how big, a reality. To get started, visit getprovide.com to see how our tech-enabled small business financing and banking can work for you. Again, that's getprovide.com for when your aspirations of business ownership exceed traditional limits. I'm Corey Brown, and this is Provide's The Path to Owning It podcast. We're back with Alex Vantarakis. Alex, let's talk about the hard part, balancing the emotions of selling a business with the reality of what it's worth. Alex, we talked a little bit about this on the front end, but I want to dive into this a little bit deeper. How can owners really strike a balance between wanting to preserve their legacy and facing the financial realities of selling? Is there a sweet spot somewhere?
Absolutely. The first thing you need to do is do not consider your business your baby like you have been for the whole time that you've owned it. If you do not make a mental, psychological cutoff that this is an asset that I own, that is part of my net worth, that I need to retire and live a comfortable life. If you don't do that step, it'll make the negotiating process infinitely more difficult. And the whole process will be harder for them to bear. So first, mentally, you just got to check out. This is an asset. It just happens to be something that I've been showing up to for 20 years and seeing these people in the hallways for 20 years.
Yeah. And you're a business owner. How do you do that? Is that something you get help with, or is it just talking to other business owners that have maybe done the same thing?
It's funny you say that. So I own the Vant Group, which is an M&A firm. That's my primary business, but I have bought and sold over 10 businesses in the lifetime of my career, all through the Vant Group. I had no problem selling any of those businesses because they were not my main baby business. The Vant Group is. So it's very easy for me to say, well, I just removed myself from the situation. And then I started thinking about, well, what if I had to sell the Vant Group? And I remember thinking to myself, that's a foolish concept. I would never sell the Vant Group. It's my baby.
Yeah.
So I'm literally my own client. So I would take the same advice that I would have, which is remove myself. And then second, I'd have to come to the realization that there's a fear that if I sell my business, John Doe or Jane Doe that buys it, they're just never going to do as good of a job and they're not going to treat my employees well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's think about this. Let's say you buy a $5 million business. Let's say it's a landscaping business. It's a beautiful business. You got $1 million in EBITDA. You got 50 employees. They've all been there for a while. It's a great business. and you love your employees and you fear that the new person is going to do something. Whenever a seller tells me that, I tell them to take off their seller hat and put on their buyer hat. I just paid $5 million for a bunch of lawnmowers and trucks. Okay, that can't be all that I paid for. Okay, well, I got a customer list. Okay, well, I'm getting closer.
Yeah.
I bought these employees. And obviously didn't really buy them. You bought the right to have these employees show up to work. What is the biggest asset in that business? Frankly, it's the employees. In my career, 26 years, over 700 transactions, I have never one time seen a buyer come in and say, yeah, all of you people here, I don't need you, or I'm going to reduce your pay, or I'm going to give you a different incentive program, or I'm going to make your life miserable because I'm the new boss. No.
Yeah.
They're sitting there thinking, God, please don't let any of these employees leave. Each one of them is valuable. Each one of these adds value to my firm. I will continue to make sure that this business is honored through these employees.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that 6 months and a year down the road, the cream doesn't rise to the top, right?
Right.
And the people that probably shouldn't have worked there are easily identified. That sort of things happens. But to completely change a culture. Now, where you can change a culture, I will tell you one exception. So if I buy a business, I'm not going to do anything. But if I'm another landscaping business and I have my own culture, my own way of doing things, it is very likely that over time they will overlay that culture over that business. So one thing to make sure, if you're being bought by a competitor and you really want to make sure your employees are taken care of, then you ensure that you have a really good conversation around culture, not so much the finances, but the culture. And then the third thing is a lot of sellers give what we'll call a retention bonus. So one of the best things you can do to alleviate risk from a buyer around employees is to tell the buyer, look, I'm going to pay each of these folks X $1,000. And frankly, we try to negotiate a split between the buyer and the seller.
Yeah. Yeah.
Upon a year down the road, if they're still there and have done everything that they're supposed to do, it's a way for a seller to thank the employees. B, it's a way for a seller to get the highest justifiable price. C, it gives buyers clarity and peace of mind. And then D, it shows the employees, you know what? My boss, he really did care about me. So that is a good way of ensuring a seamless of a transition as can be.
Yeah, no, I love that. That answers my next question too. If there's ways to sell to still protect the owner's brand, mission, and employees, and I feel like you've answered that. So.
Absolutely. If I may interject with a quick story. I had lunch yesterday with a buyer that just bought a business, and I got to be careful because he may hear this podcast. Super nice guy, super smart. He's got money. He's done well for himself. You can just tell. I think he was in corporate America. I didn't really deal with him. My partner did.
Yeah.
And he bought a business, and it's a diesel engine repair shop. Okay. So picture corporate America guy, button down shirt, slacks, slick hair, walking into diesel engine repair. And I was like, I remember when he told me he was going to buy it, I was like, well, that's interesting. Not that I didn't think he could do it. Right. Well, we meet for lunch. So how are things going? And they're going okay. Sales are down, which, by the way, for anybody that's going to buy a business that's listening, I have no idea how this is possible, but in the majority of every deal I've ever seen, either sales are going to go down in the first 3 months, an employee is going to leave, a customer is going to leave, something's going to happen that is completely unrelated to anything that just transpired. So if that happens to you, know that you're good. If it doesn't, know that you're an anomaly. So he comes in, he's telling me sales are down, and then he's like, yeah, and I'm cleaning up loose ends. And I was like, uh-oh. What do you mean?
What does that mean?
Well, this one guy, he wasn't good or something. I can't remember what he said. And he let him go. And then the one that really got me, and I wasn't there. I don't know anything, but just hearing it gives me pause. He goes, we have break from 11 to 12. Everybody takes break 11, 12. We shut the store down. He goes, at 12:02, I saw one of my guys on Facebook Marketplace doing something. And he went up to him and he said, this is company time. And he fired him.
Wow.
And that's not necessarily a bad decision. I don't know.
Yeah.
But here's what I do know. You don't want to fire anybody in the first 2 or 3 weeks unless they're stealing money from you or not showing up to work, because there's a culture that you don't want to start rocking the boat. You just don't want to do it. On the flip side, he had a lower performer admin that was extremely loyal to the owner, so much so that she would call him every day and give him an update on what's going on.
Wow.
That's not necessarily nefarious, but that's not exactly a good way to introduce yourself to a new boss. And he's probably going to let her go. So here I am telling you that most people don't let anybody go. And this gentleman's probably going to let go of 3 people in the first 2 months. Now, he's a corporate executive guy. Maybe he knows much more than I do about managing people, and he probably does. But here's what I do know. I wouldn't fire anybody ever, ever, ever in the first 3 months.
Yeah, I can imagine the precedent that sets is challenging for the culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to go back and put ourselves in the seller's shoes for just a few more moments before we end here. I mean, you've worked with a lot of owners in this stage. I'm sure there's many emotional hurdles that they go through when it's actually time to let this go. What would you say to an owner who's struggling to accept that their legacy is maybe over or maybe just taking new shape?
Great, great question. I will temporarily substitute the word owner for owner spouse.
Okay.
The owner spouse is way more difficult than the owner. Way more. I just had a deal, a guy that didn't need the money from the sale of his company, which makes our job obviously a lot easier. And we were very creative in the financing. Let's just say, I won't bore everybody. It wasn't cash at closing. It was a little bit creative. So the wife saw this and was like, had a million questions. And the owner, who I really love because he honors his wife by basically not telling her what most people would say, which is, listen, just trust me. This isn't important. I know what I'm doing. He actually let her in, which I thought was a beautiful thing. Always include your spouse in this type of decision. Whether or not, frankly, not to be disrespectful, you think they can add any value. It's not about them adding value. It's about them being comfortable with the situation. You want as much peace during this process as possible.
Yeah. They've been a part of the business in some sort of way, the same amount of time too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So how would I handle an owner whose legacy is tied up in the business? Frankly, to be candid, the first thing I would tell them is this is a business.
Yeah.
This is a money-making asset that you have, like stocks that you have in the stock market. And if you are going to successfully transition, you have to treat this as an asset and an asset only. Having said that, once I get past that, and most people aren't okay with that, then I basically answer them and say the same thing I said about the buyer putting $5 million down earlier. If you work with us, or hopefully in most scenarios, you're not having a fire sale. You're not selling to the first buyer that came by.
Yeah.
So just like you were able to pick your wife or your husband, you have the ability to vet anybody you want in whatever manner you want. Even if they have all cash to put down, if the way that they speak and sound you believe will hinder the ability for this company to succeed, you don't have to sell it to them. That's first. Second, I go back to the monetary contribution that they're making to the business and basically say, listen, what I have seen, no disrespect to you, you've owned it for 30 years. I don't work in your business, but I can guarantee you people are burnt out. Things are being done the old way. You need to look at it in a different way, Mr. or Mrs. Seller. Mm-hmm. You built an incredible foundation. And with your skill sets, you got it looking like a beautiful 3-story complex. This new buyer, he's got all these different skill sets that we've identified. And with your tutelage over the next 6 months or a year on a consulting basis, you and him or her will be able to marry your ideas together. And this 3-story complex is now a 100-story complex. And that's true, by the way. I've seen it happen. So as much as there's, negatives, there's a ton of success stories.
Yeah.
So not to scare our listeners, especially buyers, but if you were to speculate the percent of businesses that are sold, good quality businesses under 50 million in value that fail in the first 5 years.
Boy, I would hope it's a really small number. I'm going to say under 2%.
It's probably between 30 and 50%.
Wow. I was way off.
Yep.
Okay.
And the number one factor to that is the same factor that will, if you do the reverse, will increase your value. The number one reason that I've seen that businesses fail is the seller is paramount importance to the business. So even though he may say, well, I just go to work every day. Well, he's the one that knows how to do invoicing, sales, fix the equipment, does the HR, knows where the sales tax audit is, and has so much information and has so many relationships with the customers, the vendors, and the employees that frankly, he's irreplaceable. Not skill set wise, but knowledge wise. And that goes back to, if you're going to maximize the value of your business, you need to get policies, procedures, and the right people on the team so that when you're transitioning the business, it's like a franchise. There's pros and cons to buying a franchise. The best pro is they give you a training manual and say, follow these steps. If you want a successful exit, you need to have a mirror-like document that you can say, if I died tomorrow, I am so unimportant to my business, you would just have to go to this resource manual.
Yeah. No, that's such a great point. And speaking of team, if anyone that is listening today wants help navigating their own sale or acquisition, what's the best way for them to get in touch with the Vant Group?
Absolutely. The website is www.thevantgroup.com, and my email is alex@thevantgroup.com. Shameless plug to our website. I built it as an information center. It's not as salesy as it should be, but that's irrelevant to me because I want people to get information. I have free books on there. I have articles on there. I have videos on there. If you never want to talk to anybody because you're just not ready yet and you just want to be full of information, please go check out our site.
Yeah, that's awesome. Alex, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. It's really been a pleasure. And it's clear you are the person to talk to about exit planning for a business. So thank you for sharing your expertise.
Thank you. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. The path to owning a business is a nuanced journey. We hope you discovered something in this episode that eases your path to success. If so, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Have a topic you'd like discussed in a future episode? Drop us a line in the comments section or send us a message on social media. If you're ready to take control of your future and start building your legacy, be sure to visit getprovide.com. You can view our resources page for more helpful tools, learn how our all-in-one financial and banking products can help you on your path to business ownership, and pre-qualify for financing in under 2 minutes with no impact on your credit score. The path to owning it is brought to you by the team at Provide, and it's produced by PodCamp Media, branded podcast production for businesses. podcampmedia.com. Producer Dusty Weiss, editor Matt Covarrubias. For Provide, I'm Corey Brown. Thanks for being on the journey with us.
Provide is a division of Fifth Third Bank, National Association. All opinions expressed by the participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Provide, its affiliates, or Fifth Third Bank. The participants' opinions are based on information they consider reliable, but neither Provide, its affiliates, nor Fifth Third Bank warrant its completeness or accuracy and should not be relied upon as such. This content is for informational purposes and does not constitute the rendering of legal, accounting, tax, or investment advice or other professional services by Provide or any of its affiliates. Please consult with appropriate professionals related to your individual circumstances. All lending is subject to review and approval.